All right, so you guys really want to know about Fidel Castro, huh?
Yeah.
It seems like everyone's got a story or a theory or a conspiracy,
Mm-hmm.
so we're diving deep
Heard into it.
into the CIA's attempts to take Castro out.
Oh, yeah.
And trust me, the sheer number of times they tried is mind-boggling.
Really is?
We're talking hundreds of schemes and plots
Hundreds.
and just downright crazy ideas spanning decades.
It's fascinating, though, how he evaded all of them.
That's what we're going to unpack today.
Right.
Why they wanted him gone, how their strategies evolved over time,
Mm-hmm.
and what this whole saga tells us about the limits of power.
Yeah, and it all started with...
Buckle up, indeed.
But this is one wild ride.
A dramatic shift, actually, in U.S. foreign policy.
Oh, yeah.
Castro's rise to power aligning Cuba with the Soviet Union.
Oh, wow.
Right on America's doorstep, basically.
Yeah.
Turned him into, a prime target during the Cold War.
It was like having an enemy set up shop right in your backyard.
Especially during a time when the threat of nuclear war was very real.
Very real. The U.S. felt incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
And Castro became a symbol of communist expansion.
Right.
A threat they were determined to neutralize.
And neutralized they tried.
Oh, yeah.
Some of these early attempts were, let's just say, more reminiscent of a bad sitcom than a spy thriller.
You think about Marita Lorenz.
Oh, yeah, Marita Lorenz.
Castro's ex-lover.
Yeah.
Recruited by the CIA to poison him.
Wow.
It's a story filled with passion, betrayal, and a healthy dose of melted poison pills.
Melted poison pills.
Melted poison pills.
I mean, can you imagine the sheer panic?
Oh, my God.
She's in Castro's bathroom, tasked with one of the most dangerous missions imaginable.
Right.
And the pills literally melt before her eyes.
Wow.
Talk about a recipe for disaster.
Just like the universe itself was conspiring against them.
Yeah.
Against the plan.
And as if that wasn't bad enough, Castro walks in on this whole debacle.
Oh, no.
And in a move that probably sent chills down, Marita's spine hands her his gun.
Wow, that's so...
Talk about adding insult to injury.
I know, it really speaks volumes about Castro's personality, though.
Yeah.
This mix of bravado, self-belief,
Uh-huh.
and perhaps a touch of naivete?
Yeah.
He seemed convinced of his own invincibility.
Right.
A trait that would become a major obstacle for the CIA.
It's almost as if he thrived on this sense of danger, this constant game of cat and mouse with the U.S.
Perhaps. And it wasn't just romantic entanglements they tried to exploit.
Right.
They also tried to infiltrate his inner circle.
Yes. Remember the story of Alan Robert Nye?
Oh, yeah.
The FBI agent who tried to pass himself off as a disgruntled Air Force pilot?
Yeah.
Hoping to gain Castro's trust
Right.
and ultimately eliminate him.
Classic case of overconfidence and underestimation.
Yeah.
The plan hinged on deception,
Mm-hmm.
but was poorly conceived and ultimately doomed to fail.
It really was Nye's cover story unraveled spectacularly.
Oh, no.
When he accidentally revealed the name of his hotel.
Uh-oh.
Which just happened to be paid for by Batista loyalists.
Not very subtle.
Like, not exactly the best way to blend in with the revolutionary crowd.
It highlights a real limitation, though, of covert operations.
Yeah.
Especially in a place like Cuba,
Yeah.
where Castro's intelligence network was quite sophisticated.
Right.
Every move had to be meticulously planned and executed.
Yeah.
One small slip-up could blow the entire operation.
And blow it did.
Totally.
Nye was swiftly exposed, kicked out of Cuba, and the CIA had to go back to the drawing board.
Back to square one.
This early failure seemed to make them realize that brute force alone wouldn't be enough.
They needed to be more strategic, more subtle.
Okay.
That's when we see a fascinating shift in their approach.
Interesting.
Enter Operation Mongoose,
Operation Mongoose.
which focused on more psychological tactics
Uh-huh.
designed to undermine Castro's popularity and destabilize his regime.
So this is where things start to get really outlandish.
A little out there.
Almost comical, if it weren't for the deadly serious intent behind it.
They brought in Dr. Edward Gunn, their poison doctor,
Poison doctor.
to concoct various schemes.
Okay.
Some bordering on the absurd,
Like
like the plan to make Castro's beard fall out
his beard fall out.
using thallium salts.
What?
Imagine the iconic symbol of the Cuban Revolution,
Yeah.
reduced to a patchy mess.
Uh-huh.
Talk about a blow to his image.
Yeah.
It was a classic attempt at character assassination,
Interesting.
targeting a symbol deeply intertwined with Castro's public persona.
I see.
Whether it would have actually worked is another question altogether, though.
Who knows? Maybe a beardless Castro would have been less intimidating?
Right.
Less of a revolutionary icon?
Less of a revolutionary icon.
But let's be honest, it probably wouldn't have changed much. in the grand scheme of things.
It does highlight the lengths they were willing to go to, though.
Yeah.
And this was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of bizarre schemes.
Give me another one.
They even considered dosing him with LSD before a radio broadcast.
LSD.
Using a spray can disguised as air freshener.
Wow.
A truly bizarre plot that thankfully never came to fruition.
Yeah. Can you imagine the chaos that it unleashed?
Total chaos.
Castro tripping on LSD broadcasting to the entire nation.
A diplomatic nightmare.
It could have been a diplomatic nightmare and probably wouldn't have achieved the desired outcome.
It certainly raises questions about the effectiveness and potential consequences of these outlandish plans. But despite their absurdity, they offer a glimpse into the mindset of the CIA at the time.
Right.
Desperate, obsessed, and perhaps a little too willing to push the boundaries of reason.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Really is. Yeah, it's fascinating how those early attempts, while often comical in retrospect, reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of Castro's character.
And the dynamics at play in Cuba.
Exactly. Like they were operating under this assumption that removing Castro would be enough to topple the entire regime.
Right, like taking out the king would win the chess game.
Precisely. They underestimated the depth of support Castro enjoyed among the Cuban people.
Yeah.
And the effectiveness of his security apparatus.
It's like they were playing checkers while Castro was playing 3D chess.
That's a great analogy.
They kept trying to eliminate him with these elaborate, almost theatrical schemes.
Right.
While Castro was always a few steps ahead, anticipating their moves and adapting accordingly.
And as time went on, their tactics did become more sophisticated.
More lethal.
More lethal? You mean things escalated beyond LSD, air freshener, and depilatory agents?
Absolutely. Remember those poison cigars we mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
That wasn't just a wacky idea.
Okay.
It was a serious attempt using one of the deadliest substances known to man.
Really?
Botulinum toxin.
Oh, wow.
It sounds like something straight out of a spy novel.
Yeah.
Meticulously injecting toxins into Castro's favorite cigars.
Did they really think you wouldn't notice, though?
It's likely they were banking on Castro's heavy smoking habit.
The sheer volume of cigars he consumed might have made it difficult to detect a tampered batch.
Right.
But as we know, even that plan failed.
Perhaps they underestimated his paranoia, or maybe someone in his inner circle got suspicious.
Yeah.
It's amazing how even the most meticulously crafted plans can unravel due to unforeseen circumstances.
It's a testament to the inherent unpredictability of covert operations.
Yeah.
There are so many variables, so many moving parts, that it's almost impossible to account for every contingency.
It makes you wonder if there was ever a moment when the CIA truly believed they were close to succeeding, or if they were always chasing a phantom, a target that was just beyond their grasp.
That's a question historians continue to debate.
Right.
But one thing is for sure, the CIA's obsession with Castro only intensified under President Kennedy.
Really?
During his time in office, they authorized a staggering 42 attempts on his life.
42? It's mind-boggling.
It really is.
It seems like they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him.
It does, and as you might expect, some of the ideas were, well...
What were they?
Let's just say they stretched the boundaries of plausibility.
Like what? Give me the good stuff.
Well, at one point, they enlisted Cornelius Roosevelt, the grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt, to help develop some truly outlandish assassination devices.
Now, there's a name that doesn't exactly scream Cold War spy master.
Right.
What did he come up with?
One of his most infamous creations was the exploding seashell.
Wait, an exploding seashell? Seriously?
Seriously, they planned to plant it in an area where Castro frequently went scuba diving.
Okay.
Hoping he'd pick it up, triggering the explosion.
It's almost too outlandish to believe it sounds like something a Bond villain would dream up. Not a serious plan from the CIA. Did they really think that would work?
It's hard to say for sure, but it does highlight a certain level of desperation.
Yeah.
A willingness to try anything no matter how absurd.
So an exploding seashell wasn't enough. What else did they have in store for Castro?
Oh, there was more. How about a poison-laced wetsuit?
A poison wetsuit. What was the thinking behind that one?
The idea was to coat the inside of a wetsuit with a fungus that would cause a debilitating skin disease.
Oh, wow.
It might not kill him outright,
Yeah.
but it would certainly incapacitate him, making it impossible for him to lead.
It's incredible how much time, effort, and taxpayer money went into these schemes, all to take down one man.
And yet Castro managed to evade them all.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, was he just incredibly lucky? Or was there something more at play?
Yeah.
His security protocols were notoriously tight.
Yeah.
And he had a keen sense of self-preservation.
He also had this uncanny ability to inspire loyalty and instill fear both in his supporters and his enemies. Perhaps that's what made him such a formidable opponent.
Yeah, that's an insightful point. And as the CIA continued to fail, their obsession with Castro only seemed to grow. They kept circling back to the idea of using poison,
Okay.
but they wanted something more discreet, something that wouldn't raise suspicion.
So something a bit less conspicuous than exploding seashells and fungus-ridden wetsuits. What did they come up with?
Well, Dr. Gunn, their trusty poison doctor, was tasked with creating a ballpoint pen with a concealed needle that could inject a lethal dose of poison.
A poison pen. Now that's a classic spy gadget.
It is.
It's so simple, yet so deadly did they manage to get it to Castro.
The plan was to slip the pen to a former Cuban military leader who had defected to the U.S. and was working for the CIA. He was supposed to meet with Castro, and, well, you can guess the rest.
It sounds like they were finally getting close using a more targeted approach, but it seems like fate had other plans.
Indeed, the pen was delivered to the asset in Paris, but before it could be used, President Kennedy was assassinated.
JFK's assassination that must have sent shockwaves through the intelligence community, did it affect their plans for Castro?
Absolutely. With Kennedy gone, the political climate shifted dramatically.
Yeah.
And the poison pen plot was quietly shelved.
It's amazing how history can hinge on these pivotal moments. One event can completely alter the course of events.
Indeed. And in this case, JFK's assassination inadvertently saved Castro's life. It makes you wonder, what if Kennedy had lived? Would the CIA have continued their pursuit of Castro? With even greater intensity, would they have eventually succeeded?
It's a question that'll forever remain unanswered, but one thing is clear, Castro was a survivor. He outlived his enemies, defied countless attempts on his life, and died of natural causes at the age of 90.
It's almost as if the CIA's relentless pursuit contributed to his myth,
Right.
solidifying his image as a cunning and invincible revolutionary.
It's an interesting paradox. The more they tried to eliminate him, the more powerful he seemed to become.
But their efforts weren't limited to elaborate gadgets and cloak and dagger schemes. Didn't they also explore a rather unconventional partnership in their quest to oust Castro?
Ah, yes, you're talking about their dalliance with the mob. The mob. I know, that's a twist I wasn't expecting. It sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie.
It does, doesn't it?
The CIA joining forces with gangsters to take down a communist dictator.
But truth is often stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
Remember, this is the early 1960s. The height of the Cold War, and the CIA was desperate.
They were.
They were willing to consider any option, no matter how unconventional, to get Castro out of the picture.
And I guess the mob, with their network of casinos and nightclubs in pre-revolution Cuba, had a certain, shall we say, expertise in discreet operations?
Exactly. The CIA saw the mob as a tool,
Okay.
a way to reach Castro without leaving any fingerprints. Plus, both parties had a shared interest in seeing Castro gone.
Right.
The mob wanted to reclaim their lost assets in Cuba, and the CIA wanted to eliminate a communist threat.
So it was a marriage of convenience, a partnership born out of shared animosity towards Castro, who were the key players in this unlikely alliance.
Well, the CIA reached out to some of the biggest names in organized crime, figures who were as powerful as they were notorious. We're talking about Sam Giancana, the head of the Chicago outfit.
Wow.
And Johnny Roselli, a mobster with deep ties to Hollywood.
Giancana and Roselli, these weren't just small-time crooks. These were heavy hitters, men who operated in the shadows and controlled vast criminal empires. What exactly did the CIA have in mind for them?
The initial plan was pretty straightforward. Use poison pills.
Okay.
Similar to the ones they tried with Marita Lorenz, and rely on the mob's connections in Havana's nightlife scene to get close to Castro.
It sounds like a plan ripped from a classic gangster flick. Slip the poison into Castro's drink while he's enjoying a night out at the casino.
Right.
But I imagine Castro, always aware of the threats against him, wouldn't be an easy target, even for seasoned mobsters.
You're absolutely right, and that's precisely where the plan faltered. Castro's security was too tight. He rarely ate or drank anything that hadn't been thoroughly vetted by his bodyguards, making it nearly impossible for the mobsters to get close enough to poison him.
It must have been frustrating for both sides.
It was.
The CIA putting their faith in these underworld figures,
Right.
and the mob used to operating with impunity, finding themselves thwarted by Castro's vigilance.
And the situation wasn't helped by the Bay of Pigs fiasco. That failed invasion, orchestrated by the CIA, was a major embarrassment for the U.S.
Yeah.
And it strained their relationship with the mob.
The Bay of Pigs was a turning point, a moment that exposed the limitations of American power and the complexities of covert operations. Did the mob lose faith in the CIA after that?
They certainly started to question the CIA's competence.
Hmm.
After all, if the CIA couldn't even pull off a successful invasion, how could they be trusted to orchestrate a discreet assassination?
It sounds like this unlikely alliance was built on shaky ground from the start, destined to crumble under the weight of mutual distrust and the ever-present shadow of Castro.
And, well, did the CIA, already wary of the negative publicity surrounding their dealings with the mob,
Right.
decide to cut ties? The partnership fizzled out another failed chapter in their long and futile quest to eliminate Castro.
So there you have it. We've journeyed through poison pills and exploding seashells, delved into the world of mobsters and spies, all in an attempt to understand this relentless pursuit of Fidel Castro. It's a story that's both fascinating and absurd, a testament to the extremes of the Cold War and the lengths to which powerful nations will go to achieve their objectives.
It's a tale that leaves us with more questions than answers.
Right.
Did the CIA's obsession with Castro ultimately strengthen his grip on power? Did their failures contribute to his legendary status, solidifying his image as the ultimate survivor?
These are questions worth pondering. The story of Fidel Castro and the CIA's relentless pursuit of him is a reminder that even the most powerful organizations can be thwarted by human ingenuity, a healthy dose of paranoia, and perhaps just a bit of luck.
It's also a reminder that history is full of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most meticulously planned actions can backfire,
Yeah.
and the pursuit of one goal can lead to unforeseen outcomes.
It makes you wonder, what would Cuba look like today had those attempts been successful? Would it be a beacon of democracy and prosperity, or would it have faced a different set of challenges? We can only speculate.
The story of Castro and the CIA is a cautionary tale, reminding us of the complexities of international relations, the limits of power, and the enduring allure of a good mystery.